For weeks now, Ukraine has been hammering Russia's oil refining infrastructure with long-range drone strikes. Hit after hit has forced shutdowns, sidelining up to 20% of Russia's refining capacity. But oil refineries aren't the only targets. Ukraine has also been going after pipelines. And on September 8th, it landed one of its biggest strikes yet, this time against Russia's gas network. Explosions rocked the Russian city of Penza, about 388 miles southeast of Moscow. According to Ukrainian intelligence, 4 blasts tore through Penza's Zheleznodorozhny district, home to 2 massive mainline gas conduits. Together, they can transport the equivalent of up to 2 million barrels of gas per day, most of it earmarked for foreign markets that bankroll Putin's invasion. Ukraine didn't stop there. Smaller pipelines serving local residents were also hit. In a single strike, Ukraine managed to sever both the arteries feeding Russia's export revenues and the lines that heat Penza's homes. The timing couldn't have been more deliberate. With fall setting in and temperatures dropping, demand for gas is about to surge. Ukraine is making sure Putin can't profit from it. As usual, Russia has refused to admit the reality of what happened. But unlike past attacks, it hasn't even tried the excuse that falling drone debris caused the explosions. Perhaps this time the damage was simply too big to deny. Instead, local authorities claimed the blasts were part of planned exercises. According to the Kyiv Independent, the explosions happened at around 4 a.m. Russia now expects its citizens to believe that security services carried out a middle-of-the-night drill involving massive explosions. Few inside Russia are likely to buy that story. And Penza wasn't the only target. Just hours before, Ukrainian drones struck a major oil conduit in Russia's Saratov region, the Karpyshev-Lysychansk trunk pipeline, capable of transporting 82 million tons annually. This line supplies fuel directly to Russian forces inside Ukraine. Russia again tried to pass this off as a planned exercise, but the reality was hard to hide. Temporary flight restrictions were imposed at Saratov's airport due to the threat of more drone strikes. It's not the sort of thing you do for a harmless drill. The truth is clear. Ukraine once again managed to penetrate deep into Russian territory, bypass air defenses and cripple pipelines vital to Moscow's war machine. These weren't isolated incidents. Just weeks earlier, on August 13th, Ukraine struck the Druzhba pipeline in Bryansk, only 25 miles from the border. The attack set fire to the Uneka oil pumping station, the largest hub in Druzhba's entire 5,500-mile network. Destroying that station disrupted the flow of oil. Russia desperately needs to fuel its mechanized assaults. Then on August 26th, Ukraine's drones hit the Ryazan-Moscow oil pipeline, a line that not only supplies the capital but also fuels Russia's military. The attack caused shortages in Moscow itself, forcing civilians to line up at stations running dry. 3 major pipeline strikes, in less than a month, each one carefully chosen to deprive Russia's soldiers, citizens, and export markets of fuel. This is not random. It's a deliberate strategy. Ukraine is targeting the arteries of Russia's economy, inflicting damage far beyond the battlefield. The war is not just about tanks and trenches anymore. It's about pipelines and revenue. Consider what's at stake. Russia's oil and gas sectors make up nearly a third of its federal budget revenue. Oil is the bigger piece, accounting for about 85% of those earnings. In 2024, Russia still managed to rake in over $120 billion from oil and gas sales, despite sanctions and the shadow fleet of tankers it deploys to skirt restrictions. But 2025 has been very different. By March, revenues had already fallen 17% compared to the year before, a $2.7 billion hit. By July, revenues were down 28% year-on-year, with gas revenues cut by more than half. Gazprom reported its lowest exports to Europe since the early 1970s. Russia's finance ministry, once predicting $136 billion in oil and gas income for the year, has been forced to slash expectations to under $4 billion, a drop of about 25%. Ukraine's strikes couldn't come at a worse time for Moscow. Every destroyed pipeline means less oil and gas making it to buyers. Every fire means millions lost, not only in revenue but in the cost and time it takes to repair infrastructure. And every strike deep inside Russia highlights the failure of air defenses that were supposed to shield the heartland. The economic picture is darkening. Growth has slowed sharply. Russia's GDP rose just 1.1% in the second quarter of 2025, compared to 4% the year before. Full-year forecasts have been cut to 1.5%. The economy is still crawling forward. But Ukraine's strikes are tightening the squeeze. A country that depends on selling fossil fuels simply cannot grow when its pipelines keep going up in flames. There's another layer here too, leverage. Putin has long relied on oil and gas as a weapon, especially against Europe. In 2022, Gazprom cut flows through Nord Stream 1, pretending it was maintenance, when in fact it was blackmail. With the flick of a switch, Putin could remind Europe how dependent it was on Russian energy. That leverage gave him power, even if it meant less revenue, but the gamble failed. Europe diversified. Imports of Russian gas fell sharply. In 2024, energy policy noted Russia had no real alternatives beyond Europe and China, and limited ability to expand liquefied gas exports. By 2027, the EU intends to phase out Russian oil and gas entirely. Ukraine's pipeline strikes accelerate that loss of influence, making Russia an unreliable supplier in the eyes of its remaining customers. Even countries like China may eventually tire of discounts and disruptions. Every Ukrainian strike reinforces the message: Russian energy cannot be counted on. Putin's most powerful tool of coercion is being turned against him. And while Russia loses leverage abroad, Ukraine is also ramping up pressure inside Russia itself. By targeting domestic pipelines alongside export routes, Ukraine ensures the pain is felt at home. Putin recently admitted at the Eastern Economic Forum that gas shortages were emerging in Russia's Far East. He blamed rising demand, but the real reason is obvious. Ukraine keeps blowing up the infrastructure needed to deliver gas. Officially, Russia has gas reserves to last up to a century, but those reserves mean little when the pipelines that move gas across the country are crippled. Shortages are already being felt. Cities are dealing with fuel supply issues. Heating and transportation are being disrupted. Exiled Russian journalist Andrei Soldatov told Channel 4 that depression is spreading through Russian cities. People are tired of war, and the constant drone strikes are forcing them to confront it directly. For much of the conflict, Russians could ignore the fighting, imagining it was distant. Now the war has come home in the form of explosions, shortages, and disruptions. Depression could eventually give way to anger, though when and whether that anger will turn on Putin remains uncertain. Meanwhile, Russia's soldiers continue to suffer the most immediate consequences. With revenues falling, pipelines burning, and oil refineries shut down, the military is increasingly starved of resources. The strikes weaken its ability to sustain offensives, to keep fuel flowing to mechanized units, and to maintain momentum on the front. Ukraine will not stop. Each successful deep strike proves it can reach further, hit harder, and sap Russia's war machine without needing to send a single soldier across the border. Every drone is a flying sanction denying Putin money, leverage, and stability. Today we're talking about the September 8 strikes in Penza and Saratov. But the pattern is clear. In a few weeks, there will likely be another report, another fire, another blow to Russia's fragile energy lifeline. The war has expanded beyond trenches into the pipelines that power Russia's economy. And while Putin struggles to hide the damage with laughable excuses about planned exercises, Ukraine keeps piling on the pressure. The question is not whether more strikes will come, it's how much longer Russia can keep absorbing them before cracks spread from its economy to its military, to its people,